Hi guys, welcome back to your Not So Ordinary Scrapbook channel. It is Wednesday evening, early evening, and I thought I would get on here and do a little scrapbooking. I still have not decided on my December daily album. I'm kind of mulling it around a little bit in my mind whether I want to use that big those big album covers. I know if I want to use it as a cover for December daily, or if I just want to create a Christmas album out of it, like a 12 by 12 Christmas album out of it, because I have a ton of leftover Christmas photos to scrapbook, and then I would use a smaller album to do the December daily. And I'm kind of leaning that way because I like the idea of using like a corset stitch with ribbon up the side, but I would like it to have a lot more papers in it and like more thickness and depth to it, like a real album, other than a very like thin, flimsy album. So I think that that's the route that I am going to go. Oh, look at this. This is where the kids were. If you saw 2 videos ago, when I did the pages of the kids playing in the mud, and I told you our homeschool group played in the mud at the nature center. Here are the photos from that day where they're playing in the mud. So that's kind of neat. These are bowling pictures and Ethan's 5th birthday. Here's another. Oh, this is Ethan's birthday. Yeah, we did do his 5th birthday party at the bowling alley. Okay. So this is all, these all go together. These are all their friends that they invited to the birthday party. So that's that. This is a different nature hike that we did with our homeschool group. This is at a conservatory. This is at a semi-local nature center that is probably 30 minutes from here. This is a nature conservatory in Springfield that we went to. We were big on nature studies when we homeschooled. This was the same day. This was taken the same day. So this is in Branson with my grandma, and we went to the military museum or war museum while we were there. So here's Ethan, very intrigued with all the tanks, and this kid of mine, my youngest, was very big into G.I. Joes and all that stuff, and which is so interesting because now as an adult, he's always been kind of a very sensitive kid and adult. And so I don't know what this expression on his face, if he has a lot of empathy, probably more empathy. Well, I'm not going to say more empathy than my other kids because they're very empathetic as well. And Matt probably more so now that he's a father. He is incredibly empathetic and incredibly grateful, and just once you become a parent, it changes you. I think Hunter feels the same way, but he has so many kids right now that I don't think that he has time to even reflect on anything right now. So I don't blame him if he's not thinking. I mean, I know he loves his kids. There's no question about it. But I think that he's a little bit overwhelmed right now, which, I mean, so is his wife. They have a ton of kids. They have a lot going on. You know, her mom's got health problems, and then there's Hunter's car did something yesterday that he's not sure what's wrong. He opened it and it was spitting oil, and luckily he made it to his wife's grandparents' house, her grandfather is a mechanic, and he was going to take a look at it today, but like something like where the chain is, the timing chain, there was something piece melted there, and we don't know what's going on there. So he's got a lot on his plate. Not saying that Matt and Yessie don't have a lot on their plate either. I think they're contemplating a lot of different things right now. They, are very strong in their faith and their church, and, that is their family away from, home, and, and raising their daughter in the Christian faith, and, they're very strong in that area. But there's, Matt's going to school to be a computer engineer, and Yessie has her business. She's an esthetician, and, there's that contemplation or that, that battle between when you become a mom and wanting to stay home with your child and then having to go to work, and all that stuff. And I mentioned to her, I don't know if it's an option for her, but like to zone their home as a business. And if they can do that, then maybe she could open her own spa out of her home. They do have a room in the back of their house that is not even connected to their house, really. There's a door off the patio into this room that I think would be perfect for a spa room, to be honest, because, her clients would not even have to enter their house. They could go around back and go in, and she could do all of her services there because she has to pay for everything herself anyway. And that would save her a fee, that she has to pay to the spa. They all are like their own businesses within the spa, although she's close with the owner of the spa. So I don't know. It's going to be something that they're going to have to discuss and decide. And, it's just, they have a lot going on too. So, okay. So this is the same Branson trip. We went to like an exotic zoo. So that goes with that. Here's the same Branson trip. Ethan walking on the rocks. Just kind of, is this picture... Mojo's Buy, Sell, and Trade. Kind of looks like my hometown. I don't know. But I don't know. I'm not sure what that is, to be honest. I don't even know if that's my picture. This is... This is a friend of ours, baby. I think that was Scott. Yeah, these are Scott's friends from school. This is my friend Kim's son, Mason, who's an adult now. This is 4-H. So I'm trying to go through my pictures and see what's going to fit with the paper that I have. This is the water park. We took a trip to the water park with the kids' best friends. So we have this. Okay, this is Anigo Library. I spent a lot of time with, yeah, these are all of Anigo. Except, I don't know why I took a picture of this, other than I think this used to be Woolworths when I lived there. This must be a modern day photo, because it wasn't a buy, sell, and trade. I'm pretty sure this used to be Woolworths. This is a library that they made into a museum. They have a new library. I spent a lot of time at this library when I was a kid when I was a teenager, because our high school was just down this road right here, at walking distance, not even, probably about a block away. And so I would walk there after school before I had my driver's license and a car. I would walk there after school and then do my homework at the library. A lot of kids did. And then when my mom was done with work, because she worked in town in Anigo, she would pick me up and then we would go home. And this is our theater. This is a Palace Theater in our hometown. And Molly's Jewelry. My very first boyfriend bought me a necklace at Molly's Jewelry. It was like an amethyst necklace, and I remember it because it had like a flower on it, and it was the first nice piece of jewelry that, I mean, other than what my parents had bought me, but it was pretty special. I was in the 9th grade. So, I mean, it wasn't like, I don't think we dated all that long. I remember, I know we dated all summer, and he gave me the necklace at the end of the summer. And then we would talk to each other on the phone all the time because he lived in town. He lived in this town, and I lived in the country. And his best friend was also close friends with me, like really close friends. And so his best friend was calling me all the time too to talk. And then he was calling me. And then one day his best friend called me and said that Mike wanted to break up with me. But that was okay because he wanted to go out with me. So I went out with Pete for a while. But that was like 9th grade. You know how that is. Not very serious. Although Pete was a little handsy. Let's just say that. This is Kettle Bowl. This is the ski hill that my family skied at all the time. This is our old high school. This was the main doors at our high school. And this high school is not in use anymore. They built a new high school long after I graduated. This is the old one that I went to. And then this is Hickey's Floral. This is a parade that I think I was in. I'm pretty sure that's Jenny and that's Brian. That's Chris. I don't know where I am. I was probably in that parade. And this is a tank from my hometown. My dad and his best friend Pete. How we got to Wisconsin was his best friend. My dad grew up in Oklahoma, and his best friend grew up in Wisconsin. And after they both got out of the military, after about 4 years, they both were stationed in Vietnam. They were in the same Air Force, what do you call it, group or whatever they call it, battalion or whatever. And they became best friends. They met in basics. They stayed together through the whole thing. So then when Pete got out of the military, he moved back to Wisconsin, and my dad and mom stayed in Las Vegas for a while when I was a baby. And then they went to Oklahoma where my dad was from. And then I guess Pete and Carla was my mom's best friend too, all through high school. So it was like two best friends marrying each other. So it was kind of interesting how that they had a double wedding and all that stuff. And so they convinced mom and dad to move to Wisconsin so they could be near each other, because my mom missed Carla and my dad missed Pete. So they did, and that's how we ended up there. But Pete and my dad, we had an Air Force base in the town that I grew up in Wisconsin. And so they did Air Force National Guard at this base. And so there's a tank from there. Here's the water park again, another water park. This is our fairgrounds, the town I grew up at. I spent a lot of time in this watching demo derbies. My dad used to drive demo during the fair. We would all park here when I was a teenager, and then we'd walk the loop around the fair. I grew up in a very small town where that was pretty much all that there was to do during the summertime. And, you know, I grew up a farm kid, so, like, the fair was a big deal because that was something that we did. And then this is the courthouse, which is right next to the safety building where my dad worked. My dad was a cop. And this particular courthouse has been, it's like a historical building now. They have a new courthouse and safety building that are like, together. But the steps right here, the Pete that I just mentioned, yeah, we fulfilled his dream on the steps of the courthouse steps. And no, I don't mean that. I mean, we were young. Let's just say that. And we didn't do like what you're thinking we did. But like our first kiss and that kind of stuff happened on the courthouse step because that was his dream. He said, I always wanted to have my first kiss on the courthouse steps and all that stuff. And it was night and it was dark and it was after the movie theater. So we walked from the movie theater over to the courthouse, and I told him my dad's working. If my dad finds out or if he's not here, and I knew all the cops because we lived in a small town, and of course they knew my dad, and I was afraid we were going to get in trouble. And oh my gosh, that was a scary night. Dog and Suds was right down at the end of the street where I grew up when I was very little, the house that burnt down. And Dad would take us to Dog and Suds. This is my high school mascot, the Indigo Red Robins. Here's another picture of the library, the public library at our hometown. And that's where the high school is, down over there. This is Mad at School program. This is Silver Dollar City. This is Silver Dollar City. Silver Dollar City. What is this? This is our honeymoon in Arizona. This is at Tombstone, Arizona. We went to a Wild West town. What is this? This is Matt's swimming lessons at, that's Matt's swimming lessons at, Four Seasons. This is Cub Scouts. This is a homeschool thing. Valentine party we went to. This is my hometown. This is the Eau Claire Dells, which is not far from where I live, and there's like rock formations. It's like a small version of Wisconsin Dells, and you can go there and swim and have picnics. This is like a pavilion there. Spent most of my life going there for church picnics and for events, parties. When I was an older teenager, young adult, even after I was married to my first husband, we would go there. They had nature hikes all the way around the Dells that you could walk around, and there were big rocks that you could jump off of into the lake. My dad and Pete would do that when they were young, when they were in their 20s, and I was a little kid, and they would do that. Jump off those rocks into the water and scare my mom and Carla to death. This is our hometown hospital. This is Langlade Memorial Hospital. This is where my sister Jenny was born. I was not born there. This is where most of Jenny's kids were born. I think, let's see. No, not most. 2 of Jenny's kids were born in this hospital. None of my kids were born in this hospital. But I did work at this hospital. One of my first jobs after I got married to Joe was we lived in a little house that was right next door to the hospital. My mom worked at the hospital. She worked in billing, and we rented a little house that was right next door to the hospital. We were really young, 22. We had just got married, and I worked in dietary, and we rented the house from the nuns that own this, or the nuns don't own the hospital, but it was a Catholic hospital, and that was run by nuns. And the little house that we rented was like a little house that the nuns lived in for a really long time, and for years and years. And then the hospital owned it, so the hospital would rent it out, and they rented it out to us because my mom worked there, and it was a cute little house. But so that was one of my first jobs. out of college and right after we got married. Was at that hospital taking food to people, doing dietary. This I'm pretty sure. Now that's a church picnic. This is where I live now. That's a movie theater. I was thinking of doing a layout of, that might work actually. Maybe I'll do that. That just gave me an idea. I'm gonna do the movie theater when I was growing up and the movie theater at our town now. This is the town we live in, and so, but this isn't necessarily the theater. This is the old theater. We have a new theater right next door. So I could do that. This is this is the junior high to my high school. We had trees all over here. And kids, I went to school in the 80s, so like kids would come outside and they would like, we had open campus, so we could walk downtown. Our high school was right in the middle of town, so we could walk downtown and get something to eat and stuff instead of eating in the cafeteria at school. They closed campus once they moved the high school out, kind of out in the country. But we were lucky we had open campus, and kids would come outside, the smokers, and they would smoke by these trees. And this whole area was just filled with kids that smoked and stuff, and fights would take place out by these trees. I can recall a number of fist fights I saw happen out by these trees in front of the school. And this is just little photos. This is my friend Wendy, which would be cool because after she had one of her kids, I don't know which kid that is. She has 9 kids. Actually, I think that's her youngest because she looks older. I think she was 40 when she had her youngest child. But I went to high school with her, so if I can find a picture. I think I have several pictures of her when she was a teenager or a little kid even, because we went to school since we were in 2nd grade. We've been friends since 2nd grade. This is Matt when he wrestled for Lincoln High School. This is Uncle Ray. That's in Missouri, so that we can put that by Branson. These are Silver Dollar City, so those I know for sure. Go over there. This is on the boat. Yeah, this is on the boat in Branson with Uncle Ray. And then there's Matt and Tess. Okay, so what am I going to scrapbook? I was going to do the back page of this one with the space, but it doesn't really match like the pictures that go with it. So I'm going to think on that for a minute. But I feel like this will go in an entirely different album because this is like my growing up album. These Branson ones can go with Silver Dollar City because that's all in the same, that's all in Branson. This, I have more pictures of the Valentine party, and I have more pictures of Cub Scouts, the nature preserve, I could do that one about friendship. I know I have more pictures of swimming lessons, and that's our honeymoon. You know, I could do my dilemma with this. Okay, so if I do this, the back of that, it doesn't really go is the only thing. That's That's when they studied whale. They adopted a whale in school. Oh, this is Branson too. So that goes over there. You know, I could do this on the back with the space because I think they did cosmic bowling for his birthday. And then space would be appropriate for the bowling because it's cosmic bowling. So I think I'm going to do that. And it's the same age as those pictures. So I think tonight I'm going to try to scrapbook the rest of these ones from when Ethan was 4 turning 5, and then this is 5 at the bowling alley. So we're going to do that. That is going to be what I scrapbook tonight. And if I can get through a few layouts with that, I will be satisfied. So the cool thing, okay, so this picture is at that picture I showed you, this, at Eau Claire Dells. This is a church picnic at Eau Claire Dells where my mom and a bunch of people who went to our church in Antigo. This is a picture of the Eau Claire Dells like long before. So this is like 1972-ish, and this is modern day. So that's kind of cool. I could do that sometime too. I'm trying to think what this is of. I'm thinking this is at the cottage. I'm pretty sure that is at the cottage. Okay. So, all right. So I think we're good there. I'm going to put these back in here. And now I have a plan because I don't like to not have a plan. All right. So I am going to do the back of this. So these are the muddy pictures that, this is a layout that I did the other day with the muddy pictures. And like I said, I have more of those muddy pictures. But I think I'm going to put these up front because this was on the way home anyway. When we were getting ready to get in the car and they were all covered in mud. Here's another one. I don't know if that's the exact same photo. I think that's just a duplicate photo. But here they are jumping in the mud. Them and their friend that day. So I think before this page, I'm going to do these. And then after, because the back of this is this, I am going to do the cosmic bowling. So here's Bobby and Grandma, and this is their friend from church, and this is his brother Tyler. Tyler was a good friend of Hunter and Ethan's, and this is their brother, what was his name? I can't remember his name. It was a long time ago. And there's Ethan, there's Matt, here's Hunter. Here's another one of Tyler, and then here's Matt. Oh, Joseph. This is Joseph. Okay, so I don't know what pictures I'm going to be able to fit on there, but we're going to try, since it was cosmic bowling, I think that'll go good. And this would be right after that because he was 4 in the mud pictures, and this is where he turns 5, so that works. So I'm going to cut these down, kind of crop them. So I have reports to type out because before I started this video, I had only been home for like 30 minutes. Because today is the day that I normally have a later client. And so, and I saw a new one before that, which was, it went well. I really enjoyed it. These are not important. For some reason, kids engage with me fairly quickly. This new child, was kind of slow to warm at first, but then at the end she was just all smiles and everything. So that was fun. I was glad. I was a little worried at first. I was like, and Mom said she's that way with everybody, so I was like, but she was super quiet. And then her brothers came home from school and they wanted to play, and she was all about that. She just came to life when her brothers were in the picture. And so that was neat. I got to see her interact with other kids, which is a big step in the right direction. So that was pretty neat. I don't know. I kind of want to use stripes, but I think I did. I think I used stripes on this side, didn't I? No, it was a different page. I mean, I do like the stripes. I kind of like the yellow as a matte too. Or orange. But I do kind of like that too. Okay. Now we got to find either bowling or space themed embellishments out of this basket. So we're going to try that. So today I learned something about myself, which I'm not proud of by any means. But in my old age, I am developing a little bit of road rage. And I've never been one that like got mad at other drivers, like for driving like an idiot. And I'm definitely not a perfect driver for any, I mean, for one thing, my vision is not good. So just even, driving, I know that I make errors due to my vision not being the best. But I was so impatient today to get to my client. I was afraid I was going to be late because first I got behind this car that was going super slow and it was a no passing zone. And I was like, oh my gosh, will you just, this one says make a wish. So that is kind of birthday themed. I just was like, come on, wanting them to hurry up because I was like, this is ridiculous. And I don't like to be that way, but like, I was finding myself like getting very agitated because it was taking so long. This would be great for nature. So I might save that out in case I get to those nature ones. This would be cute for the mud, a hose. Even though they didn't use a hose, but that might be cute. Roasting marshmallows. So basically what I do now is I just kind of go through the embellishments in this basket. Like, this is kind of what I had set aside for my page kit that I already went through with you guys. And it just gets dumped in a bucket and then I kind of go through it. There's probably a more efficient way to do this, but this is what works for me, and I kind of enjoy it. It's really relaxing for me to sort stuff. There's a balloon. I love to sort. I love to sort by color. I love to line things up. I like to have like a big, huge like pile of something and then like put it all in order. That's just something that like I really like. Just kind of how I am. So anyways, I'm like, I finally get past this really slow moving car And I go to turn down the road, the country road where this house is at, and a big, giant combine is like blocking the entire road. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm just like, so I'm trying to be patient because I know that those are hard to get over. And I'm just like, boy, girl, you are, because I was like talking to myself. I was the only one in the car, but I was like, get out of my way. So, I guess with old age comes road rage, apparently. But I got home and I need to type the reports out, but I'm like, I need a breather. First of all, I was starving because I hadn't even eaten anything all day today. I was up at 4 to watch the littles. We still have Esme. I don't know if we'll have Esme tomorrow. He keeps saying that he's supposed to drop her off, and then Mom, for some reason, can't pick her up. So, and we don't mind. I mean, I don't mind at all. I love having her as much as possible. I think she spends a lot of time at the babysitters. I don't think Mom is with her very often. And she's very content and very loving child that just needs attention. I don't think she gets very much attention at home. So, I mean, I don't mind, but it is an early morning, and I let Scott sleep in because I knew that my clients were not until afternoon today. So, and he deserves to have a night or a day that he gets to sleep in because tomorrow he'll have to get up at 4 because I have to see my first client at 8 a.m. and it's almost an hour away. So that I'm going to have to sleep until probably, I have to leave home at 7 to get there by 8, and that means in order to take a shower and do all that stuff, I have to get up at 6, and if I get up at 4, I'll just be too tired to think about all the things that I need to think about. One of the things that I have to do for my job is I have to remember everything on their file. So because I am always asking parents questions, and I try to be very specific with my questions so they know that I know the child's file, frontwards, backwards, everything in between. I want them to know that I am fully updated on their progress and their medical history and all that stuff, so I can talk it over with them because children change so quickly, and medical, how do we want to live today? Medical treatments change, all the time. So just because they were doing one treatment when the child was evaluated doesn't mean that they're still using that treatment, or if things haven't changed. So there's just a lot that goes into it, a lot to remember when you're talking to a client. And if I'm tired, I know that my brain just won't be functioning the way that it should. So I'm grateful that he lets me sleep in on those days. I need to get to the hospital and get my labs done. I keep getting emails and texts from my doctor saying that they're still waiting on my labs, but I just haven't had a chance to get there to get the labs done. Scott had to get labs too because he has to have surgery on his neck. I think next month. It's not like, it's not orthopedic or anything like that. He has a cyst on the back of his neck, which just needs to be drained. It's not like anything to be worried about. I mean, it's just like, he gets those every once in a while. He's had them before. He'll just get a big cyst on the back of his neck. And I don't know if it's because he cuts his hair so short, or I actually cut his hair. That hair follicles get ingrown or infected or something, and at the back of the base of his neck, and then it causes like a cyst to form. So but he needs to have that taken care of. He has an appointment to have that taken care of next month. So he had to have labs for that. But this is a birthday, but that's a girl. So I've been thinking a lot about observations and how like we observe. A lot of my job is like observing what my clients do, and then keeping track of, like, I take a notebook with me, and when they say a word or do something that is one of their goals, I write it down so I don't forget. So when I type out the report, I have all that information handy, and I can just like refer back to the notes that I took during the session. And so I was thinking on the way home, because I usually sit like in silence on the way and on the way back when I go from one client to another, because it's just peaceful, and then it kind of like helps me. It helps ground me, like especially if I'm going to another kid's house. I kind of I'm able to like shift gears a little bit. But I was thinking about like how we observe people in our life, not only like in my job, just people in general, and how we learn their patterns, and we learn like things about them that they probably don't know that we know, just because we've observed them enough that they don't have to tell us everything about themselves. We just kind of develop that knowledge just by watching them, and getting to know them, and just different situations that you observe that take place, and you kind of, oh, that's cool. That's got stars on it. You kind of learn about people that way, or at least I do. I am a very strong observer. I talk a lot when I get to know people, but I also am a really good listener for the most part. When I don't get overly excited, because sometimes I do. And I'm like everybody else. Like, I hate that that when somebody's telling me a story, like, and this doesn't always happen, but I always have to tell myself, don't say anything, is, how somebody's telling a story and then it relates to something that happened to you. And so you just immediately, without thinking, you're like, oh yeah, I know what that, and you try to relate what they're telling you to something that, like, try to apply it to your situation. And that's not always good, because I know I don't like it when my mom does that to me. Like, I'll be telling her something, and then she'll go on a tangent about something that happened to her that she thinks is related to my story, but it's not. And it's like, and then you end up thinking, well, you're not listening to me at all, and then that can be frustrating. But so I have to intentionally, I get that from my mom. And so I have to intentionally, when somebody's telling me a story, I have to intentionally say, or like remind myself, like I'll think of a story that relates to it, and then I'll be like, nope. Like, I kind of tell myself in my head, I'm like, no, it's not necessary for you to tell your story, because this is about them, not you, and it takes a lot of work. Because for years I didn't even realize that I was doing that. But the older I get, and, with age comes knowledge, of course, for most people, you just kind of learn things about yourself that you're not exactly proud of. And especially, like, if you have a parent like I do, who, and I take after her, of course, because she's my mom, who does that, and I always think to myself, well, how that makes you feel, they probably wouldn't appreciate that either. And then I just continue listening. But one thing that I do is I observe things about people just by watching. I love people watching. That's like one of my favorite things to do, is to people watch and learn things about them just by watching them, which is probably kind of creepy, but that's just kind of how I am. I don't mean any harm by it. It's just, something that I do. When I was a kid, I would stare at people, and my mom would really get mad. My mom and dad would get mad at me, because people would, like, they would make remark like, why is she staring at me? And I can remember even on the job getting, like, I thought I was going to get fired, but I didn't get fired. When I was in college, I worked at Kmart, when I lived in Stevens Point, and I remember I worked the checkout, and I was checking people through, and I had a really long line. And there was a girl that was in line with her mom. And when I used to stare at people, and maybe I still do. It wouldn't surprise me if I do. I kind of know that about myself, that I am prone to do that without thinking. I kind of zone out and stare, or I'm watching them, learning about them by watching them. But some mom, like, she got to check out, and she's like, you're staring at my daughter. And I'm like, I was not staring at your daughter. And she's like, yes, you were. I saw you. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry if you thought that, but it was not intentional. I have no reason to stare at your daughter. And she just lost it. As far as I knew, there was nothing wrong with her daughter. She was probably, I don't know. Gosh, I don't even know. Probably 8 or 9 years old. I don't know. And she's like, I want to talk to your supervisor or whatever. So my supervisor comes over, and she's like, she's staring at your daughter, or she was staring at my daughter. And I'm like, I told her I wasn't staring at, her daughter. I don't know. And so he apologized, and she left. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get fired. Like, but he's like, he's like, what in the heck was that? And I was like, I don't know. She said I was staring at her daughter. I said, what I was doing was like, what, the line is long, So I was like, like trying to get everybody through the line, and like I still had people in line when he was talking to me, and they were saying, like, they were like, you weren't staring at her, she's crazy or whatever. But you know, I think sometimes maybe I was. I mean, when I think back, maybe I was staring at her, because I do that. I know that I do that. And you know, people just have to tell me, you know, you're staring, and then I'll avert my what I'm looking at. But I like to watch people. I like to watch, like, what they're doing, and, like, you know, not really for any reason, just because I want to learn. Like, I want to learn about them. So I know, you know, I was thinking about that in the car, how, like, how we learn a lot about people just by watching them, and you know, just being there when situations happen, and like, and then, like, understanding things about them, you know, that they probably don't know that we know, you know, but we do, you know, and it's okay, you know. It's not like, I mean, I'm sure people do that to me too. And that's just, I mean, I don't know if that's just a trait that everybody has, or you know, or maybe it's just me. I don't know. I've always been kind of an odd duck, so we'll just leave it at that. But I was thinking of, like, how much I know about people that they don't know that I know, you know. And it's not because I do research on them or anything, because I've never done that in my life about anybody. Like, I don't research people or try to find out things about people, or, you know, pull their credit report or anything like that. I'm not that kind of a person. But you learn just from observation and from listening to what they tell you. And, you know, and mostly that's how I learn things about people and decide for myself, like, if I like them or if I don't like them, or if I want to get that to know them more, or how I reflect back and, like, oh my gosh, I knew this person from a long time ago, you know, that kind of stuff, you know. And things they say, you're like, oh my gosh, that's that person, you know. And then you remember more and more as time goes by, you know, because you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that happened, you know. And I think that that's just part of life, you know. You don't, I don't know, maybe some people think that's creepy, but it's, I mean, it's not intended to be creepy. It's just learning about people. And I mean, we're just on this earth to care about others anyway, you know, for no particular reason. I don't think it's a crime to care about people. Dog. So this week has been, like, insane. Like I said, we've had Esme and we've had Corbin. Thank God we haven't had Kason, because I think I would have lost my mind if we had Kason. And I'm praying that we don't have Kason at all this week. Friday, all the guys have off because they get a 3-day weekend, which is nice. And we're going out to eat for Ethan's birthday. We were going to go out last Sunday, but everybody was exhausted because they were mandated to work on Saturday. So, and we were exhausted anyways. Our house was trashed. I mean, when we were coming into the weekend, like, it was so trash because we had Kason here. He had trashed the living room like every single day that he was here, and I had to clean it up, and I was exhausted from having to clean up the living room and clean up spills, and I had to wash all the sofa cushion covers because he he had gotten food, like jelly, peanut butter and jelly all over them. And, you know, it just was a lot of work. And then, you know, things got left undone because we're tired, or we're doing other things, you know, that were more pressing, and, you know, we're both working, and it was a lot. And I don't think really don't think that I'm fully recovered yet, because we're used to having just Corbin, and Corbin is fairly easy. You know, he's an 18-month-old, and he is pretty easy to watch. You know, he doesn't really get into too much stuff. He's really easy baby to watch. Esme makes it more challenging because she's loud and she's rambunctious, and she's 3, and if Corbin's taking a nap, she'll wake him up, and, you know, all that stuff. It's just a lot. And I love having her here, and I love her to death. But it makes the day harder for sure. And then Kaysen, because Kaysen has autism, that's the most challenging of all, because you can tell Kaysen something and he will listen. Like, if you tell him no, he will listen, but then he'll do it. Like, he'll forget as fast as you said no, he forgets. And so then he does it again. And last week he learned how to climb up on the piano. And we have a guitar on our living room wall as a decoration, and it's Hunter's old guitar, and it's in like a guitar holder on the wall, and he was hell-bent on getting that guitar down, and he became obsessed with it. And so he would I would find him climbing up on the piano, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. That's dangerous. And I got him down probably 50 times. And I would move stuff out of the way so he couldn't step on it. He drug his backpack over. He climbed up there. Then he was using the chair to climb up. So I had to sit in the chair and block the arm of the chair where he was climbing up. And I'm like, good Lord, kid. I can't. I'm just like so exhausted getting you down from the darn piano. And I opened the piano because I thought, well, if I open up the lid, then, you know, he's not going to want to step on it because the keys are there. And nope, that didn't deter him at all. He still climbed up there. He had no, you know, he just, the child has no fear. But yeah, that was an incredibly challenging day. And now I don't even know what to do the next time he comes over, because now he's just going to go right for that again. I know it. And it's going to be super exhausting. Let's just say that. Super duper exhausting. Well, he's wearing orange there. I could do yellow underneath there, like double matte that. And then here he is here. So I definitely want those pictures highlighted. This was that morning. I used to, when the kids were little, I would cook them a birthday breakfast. I would ask them what they wanted for breakfast, and I would do this pancake thing. And if they wanted it, like if they didn't want it, I didn't do it. But for years, I'd make a pancake for every year of their life. So like when Hunter turned 10, he wanted pancakes. So I made 10 pancakes, and that kid ate them all, and he threw up, and he did not want, he was like, why did you let me eat 10 pancakes? That's what he told me. I said, I didn't make you eat 10 pancakes. I just cooked 10 pancakes for you just because it was your 10th birthday. And he was kind of mad at me he said, he goes, why did you make me that many pancakes? I'm like, well, you put it in your mouth. But I did that for Matt too. When Matt was 16, I made him 16 pancakes. And mainly I did it just for a photo, you know, just for a photo. They didn't have to eat all of them. And then as they got older and I learned after Hunter threw up the pancakes, I was like, okay, you need to make silver dollar pancakes. So I started making the smaller, tiny pancakes for their birthdays as they got older, because it was like, you know, when you're 3 and you have 3 pancakes, that's nothing. Or when you're 5 and you have 5 pancakes. But if they didn't want pancakes, I would make them, you know, whatever they wanted. If they wanted an omelet, or if they wanted, or Scott did, if Scott was home. Scott's kind of our omelet genius in the family. That's what he used to do when he was a short order cook at the Dixie. Is he, when he was young, he, everyone wanted him to make omelets because he still is a really good omelet maker. But apparently on this day, Ethan wanted an omelet, bacon, and a biscuit. So I got the neatest messenger message this morning. That was a surprise for my oldest son that like left me in tears. Him and I went through some really tough times when he was a teenager. Like, I tried homeschooling him. It did not work out all that well. He just didn't. He just was very difficult. Very difficult to homeschool. Very difficult to listen. He had ADHD, or ADD. And so that made it challenging to keep him focused. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to homeschool him. He actually asked me to homeschool him, was the whole reason why I did it. But I knew for a while I'd been thinking about it because I was always getting, when I worked at the grade school that he went to school at, when we lived in a different town before we bought this house, it was very easy I had relationships with all those teachers because I worked there. I knew them. They could pull me aside anytime and just say, can I talk to you for a minute? And they'd talk to me about like how his medication was working or not working. Like if he was missing any homework. I mean, just anything. They could do that. And I loved it. You know, it was just the best of both worlds because I was always on the same page with the teachers, and I had relationships with these teachers. I mean, we were friends, and or if not close friends, we were colleagues, you know, that respected one another. And do I want more orange? Maybe. Could do that. Trying to decide which is going to work the best. Probably there. But when we bought this house in Lincoln and we moved, which now, like, hindsight is 2020, because I'll tell you what, when we started looking for a different house, we initially looked in McLean in Atlanta, and we And in our price range, because we had been pre-approved for a certain amount, in our price range, there really wasn't a whole lot available. It was a bad time to buy a house, for one thing. Interest rates were low, but people weren't selling their house. Like, I think there was like 2 houses. Was there 2? And there was one in McLean that we looked at that was right next to the railroad tracks, and I was like, no, I'm not owning a house next to the railroad tracks. The house was fine. It was just, I didn't want a house next to the railroad tracks. We looked at one in Atlanta that I fell literally in love with. And I worked in Atlanta. The school was in Atlanta that I worked at. And so that would have been ideal. And that house ended up burning down. It was the perfect house, the perfect price. Like, it was $70,000. It was an older home, probably. It was a Victorian home. So pretty. Oh my gosh, I can still see it in my head. And I remember my dad coming to look at it and him saying, this house has a lot of problems, because my dad was a master's electrician. He had his own electrical business on the side when he was a cop for years and years. And he said, I do not want to wire this house. He goes, I don't want to touch this house, because he says it's too old. And he said the wiring is, you know, it had like the old, I don't even know. The switches were old, you know, like they were push button switches, and just really, really old. And we went down in the basement, and like there was wires hanging and all this stuff. And my dad's like, please do not buy this house. Do not buy this house. And it was a gorgeous house inside. I mean, it was well maintained, beautiful. Like, as far as it was a really beautiful home. Like, the carpet was in good shape. I don't know if that's too much. But yeah, so that sucked. That house burnt down. And then we looked at another house, which some people from church owned it, and it was another Victorian house, but it was not in good shape at all. And these people had a ton of junk in their house. Like, I mean, I'm talking a ton of junk. And it just would, I don't even know if it would have passed inspection, to be honest. But there were just things that I just did not like about that Victorian house, and I was like, no. And I think they wanted too much for it too. They wanted $100,000 for it, and I was like, we were approved for $120,000, but I knew that the lower the price of the house, the lower your mortgage payment would be. And so I was trying to, you know, weigh that option too. Like, if the house needed a lot of work, you know, you don't want to pay $1,000 a month for a mortgage, you know, especially if it needed a lot of work up front. So we looked at, there were 2 other houses that we looked at, and my dad came with us because he would come up, he wanted to inspect all, like, he did this to Jan and Jenny and Ann and Scott too. Like, all of us kids when we bought houses, like every house that we've ever owned, he'll go through, and I mean, unless like Dane and Jenny's was a new construction, and then even then, you know, Dad thought that was a really beautiful house because it was built in 2022, but they have already, like, it's for sale right now, and they're having trouble selling it because the housing development that built all these houses, like, they bought it when they bought their house, it was pre-built, but no one had ever lived in it. It was like this housing development that, like, built all these houses in the subdivision, and Dane and Jenny bought a house there, in this subdivision, but they found out later that it was built on a flood zone. So like their yard was flooding, and everybody around them was just having terrible trouble with like it flooding. Like their yards were flooding. They couldn't keep grass on their lawn. It was just all mud. And Jenny decided that, well, Jenny and Dan, they decided they didn't want to live there anymore because it was just a mess, and they were tired of it. And like a lot of people were selling houses in their subdivision. Like once they found out that that was a problem, like people started dropping like flies, selling their houses. And so Dan and Jenny bought a different house, and they're already moved into that house, and they've had several open houses, but see, word gets around that it's built on a flood zone and nobody wants to buy your house. So they're dealing with that, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating for them. I can't even imagine how they're paying, you know, for their mortgage right now, and then paying, you know, their house, like they've got their house for sale for $299,000. And like, I can't imagine that mortgage and the mortgage that they're currently paying, like double that. Oh my gosh. You know, that's just insane. But they're managing. Where am I going to put this? I gotta figure this out. I put this one at the bottom. I want Ethan here. I have so many of these. Like, I want to get Hunter in here. This one of Ethan's back is not necessarily that important. Where is the one of Matt, though? I definitely want the one of, like, all the kids. Like, I got one of Tyler, but this is a better picture of Tyler. Like, if I could do this one here. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I definitely want this one of him bowling. How am I going to do this? Do that. I mean, I've already matted that though. So anyway, to make a long story short, we started looking in Lincoln, and this house was a repo house, and the price was incredibly low. And we thought to ourselves that we're like, we gotta nab up this house because this house is worth a whole lot more than they're asking for. And little did we know at the time that there were underlying problems that we didn't realize, you know, but there always are with houses. Because I'm pretty sure there was black mold in the bathroom when we bought this house, because that bathroom always smelled musty. And from day one, like even when we were looking at the house, I was like, what's that smell, you know? And we thought it was coming from the crawl space. But then like a few years ago, we found out that all the walls were just rotted with black mold. It was so bad. It's no wonder that like I was having breathing issues, and because the bathroom that had the most of the black mold was like our bedroom bathroom. And so yeah. But I was having breathing problems and just chronic colds, and just like, I know that it was due to the black mold. But my dad was able to fix it, thank God. His last masterpiece before he threw in his towel with electrical work and stuff like that. He's not doing anything like that anymore. His health is just, you know, not what it used to be. I know he would love to do that, but he just can't. Redoing our bathroom and combining 2 bathrooms into one about killed him. He got an infection in his foot because he stepped through the floor. And he says it was his fault. Like, he should have known that the floor was weak in that spot, because he had to rip up the entire floor. Like, we had to rip up everything down to, like, the studs. It was like, there was no saving any of it. The flooring, the walls, any of it. And my dad said he should have known, like, not to step in that area. And he did, and that's when it happened. But so I think I'm going to cut off the bottom of the mat. Like, I don't think it's necessary to like have this all here. I mean, I hate to cut part of it off, but it's okay. Cut about 1 inch off. But had we bought a house in Atlanta, McLean, like we had intended to, I probably would still be working at the school and not like, just my whole life would be different, because I probably would have went back to school at a different university, and I know that I would probably have taken the place of, like, the intention of me working as a para and assistant teacher was so I could move into a teacher when she retired. And that's what she told me. And then I ended up quitting because Scott's dad was dying and they were our child care providers. And we lived in Lincoln, and the roads terrified me. We had this dumb van that it was either front wheel drive or rear wheel drive. I'm not good at remembering that kind of stuff. But it was horrible on winter roads, horrible. And I scared the crap out of myself on my way to work one day. And I knew before I left that I should call off that day because the roads were really bad. But Olympia was one of the last schools to ever cancel school. Like, this happened all the time, and I had to leave early from home because we lived in Lincoln, and I had to take the kids up to McLean, and then I had to drive to Atlanta. And so I had to leave pretty early, and the principal would wait till the last minute to call off school. And I don't know if it was the principal or if the superintendent or whoever it was. I don't want to cover up his hand, but I don't want to cover up... Well, there's another picture of Grandma. So we'll just put him over top of Grandma because there's no Hunter in this at all. Otherwise. So I went in the ditch so many times that day. And they ended up calling off school at noon. Like, what was the point for us to even go in that day? But I had hit a stop sign. Like, I had gone off the road so many times from in between McLean and Atlanta. And even on the highway, I went off the road, like, to get onto the highway. Like, I mean, it was like I had no control over my steering at all. It was absolutely horrible. And I will never own another vehicle like that ever again. Because it was literally terrifying. And I had kids in the car with me. Never again. But I got to school and I was just like, I had hit a stop sign. And I walked in. I got to school and I went to my classroom and I was just shaking. And the kids weren't there yet because I was like early. I always got there before the kids got there. But the teacher I work with, she was in our room. And I told her, I said, I hit a stop sign. Because she's like, what's wrong? You're shaking. I'm like, I hit a stop sign. And she's like, oh gosh, did you call the police? And I'm like, no, not yet. I just, like, it was right by that bar where I turned into town. I said I knocked the stop sign over. And I said I couldn't stop. It just, like, I kept going. And she's like, well, go to the office and call the police because you're going to have to report that. So I did. And they came, took my statement, and they said, you know, I told them where it was. They went out there. They came back and they were like, you know, normally you would get a ticket for that and you would have to pay for the stop sign and all that stuff, but the roads are really bad today, and so we're not going to write you a ticket. But, like, I messed up the door of my van too when I hit the sign. So, like, I had to call the insurance company and all that stuff. And that was, like, I had a cell phone, but, like, I did it in the office, like the school office. And then I went down and worked, and after that, I never felt the same about driving that vehicle. I told Scott, I said, I do not want this vehicle anymore. And we had, like, bought it the year before. Like, this was, like, the first winter that we had driven this van. And I was like, I cannot go through another winter with that van. I was terrified to drive it. But had we bought a house in Atlanta or McLean, I would probably still be working there. But I mean, there were good points. Like, our neighborhood, when we moved into this neighborhood, was really bad. Like, little did we know at the time that this was, like, a bad neighborhood. I mean, it looked like just an average quiet neighborhood in, like, a quiet older subdivision. That's kind of what it is. And, you know, it's a dead-end street, and, you know, we thought that was safe for kids, you know, but the neighbor kids were just horrendous. Horrible neighbor kids. Druggies across the street, druggies down the road. I mean, there were cops always on our street. Always. Because these teenagers, and then we found out after we had bought the house that our house had been vacant for a year before it sold, and the neighborhood kids had been using this house as a like fort or hideout or whatever, a hangout, and they had vandalized like much of this house. But the bank never told us that, because we bought it from a bank because it was a repo house, and they had fixed everything, like that, all the vandalism before we saw it. So we didn't see any vandalism, but kids knew how to break into our house. So one day, we hadn't lived here for very long. we noticed that our back door was open. It was ajar, where our mudroom is, and we had a little kitten at the time, and we noticed the neighbor girl that lived next door, she was playing with our kitten, and we're like, how'd you get our kitten? And she's like, your cat must have got outside or whatever. But we, when we got inside our house, things were knocked over in our mudroom. So we knew, and the door, like I said, the door was ajar, so we knew that she had broken into our house. So that must have been the way that they knew how to break into our house. And I called the police. And the mom was really mad because she was like, why are you calling the police on my kid? And I'm like, because she broke into our house. And she's like, she didn't take anything. I'm like, it doesn't matter. We live here, and the girl was probably 11 or 12. And she's like, and her girlfriend was there too, her little friend. And she said, well, we always used to go in your house. I'm like, well, you can't now. People live here. You can't just come into my house anytime you want, just because you know how to get in. So we ended up changing the door and we replaced that door, replaced the locks, so no one could get in again. But that was, if I were to do it over again, I probably wouldn't, like, with all that went on, with all those kids and stuff and the neighborhood and how awful it was for the first couple years. And then people started, all these kids were like, we didn't realize when we bought this house that a big portion of this neighborhood was rental houses. So people would be transient and they would live here for a couple years and move on. Well, when you have rental houses on a street, you're not always going to get the best people. Like, I mean, nothing against people who rent. We rented for a long time, after Scott and I got married. And Joe and I did when we were first starting out. And then we bought a place. And then we moved. And then we rented. And then we bought a place. And then we rented. And then I moved here. And Scott and I rented, and then we bought a place. So there's nothing against people who rent, but this neighborhood, a lot of the people who rented were not good people. Or they may have been good people, but they had addiction. They had problems. They had addictions, and they had juvenile delinquent kids that weren't supervised. And why did I cut this out? The house was clean. This doesn't even apply. That was weird. Okay, so I was going to use this sticker because it says stars can't shine without darkness, because it's like it kind of applies to like the cosmic bowling, but maybe not. I think it kind of applies, so we'll just put that I want to cover his head up. Maybe I can. I don't know if it takes away from this though. There's so much going on with this paper. Maybe I'll just put it here, since he's the star. It's his birthday, so. I do laugh, but no one's really laughing in these photos. But I guess it worked out how it was supposed to. So I can't complain too much. And like after a few years of us living here, people started moving away. I don't know if it was us or what, but like all of a sudden, like after when the boys were probably about, I'm gonna say like 7 or 8 years old, because when they were 5, we had some real bullies on the street. Like different bullies. Like at first it was Matt, like kids that were like trying to influence Matt in bad ways, and Matt was only 10 when we moved here. So that was not good. And they were all older kids, except for one was his age. And then we got a whole new load of younger kids moving in. Or people with younger kids moving in after those people moved out. And for some reason, Hunter and Ethan were always like getting picked on. They would come over in our yard, and like Hunter and Ethan loved lightsabers and playing with lightsabers out in the yard and stuff. And these neighbor kids would come over and they would like take the lightsaber away, you know, or try to steal stuff or whatever. It was bad. Or get in a fight or whatever. It was just not good. And then those people moved away. And then ever since then, it has been quiet. Like super duper quiet. Like just older people on our street. Except for Bikini Lady next door. Which I never see out anymore. For years, she's lived here for probably 10 or at least 10 years. And like when she first moved in the house next door, she would wear her bikini to mow the lawn. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not trying to be a fuddy-duddy or anything like that. But all the guys would like come out of their house and like pretend to work in their yard. I mean, like, come on. Like, I know why you're out there. And even Scott like would like go out there. And I hated this woman with a passion. So and she knew it. She knew what she was doing. You know, in her little string bikini and her cowboy boots. You know, she knew what she was doing. Because and Matt told me, Matt's like, that girl is 2 years older than me. Because when he went to West Lincoln Broadwell, she was 2 years ahead of him. So he said, when I was in 5th grade, she was in 7th grade. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So she was young. I mean, she was young. And these people that were going outside and looking at her were old men. I mean, that was pretty gross, to be honest. But, because that would be about right. Because 10 years ago, Matt would have been 22. And she would have been about 25. So, yeah. And now she's 35. And she's had a couple kids. So her figure isn't as, you know, nice as it was in her 20s. And so she doesn't mow in her bikini anymore. So I don't know if I can call her a bikini lady anymore or not. But like all of our friends, like when we refer to the neighbor, we refer to her as bikini lady, and everybody knows who we're talking about. Okay, so I want to just write out like cosmic bowling. I mean, I could do copper, but that's not really that big. I could do turquoise. Yeah, maybe I'll do turquoise. I think that'll show up probably the best. I don't really have a lot of embellishments on this page. I'll have to add some enamel dots and stuff because there just really wasn't a whole lot of birthday stuff in this kit. I mean, I can do this. So anyways, gosh, I went on a tangent, didn't I? totally away from. Matt texts me. Matt and I had difficulty. Like, my oldest son, like, when he was a teenager, and just he was challenged at homeschool and all that stuff. And this morning, I get this message from him on Messenger, and it's just like him apologizing to me the way he behaved when he was a teenager, and how homeschooling him, like, how difficult he made it for me, and like how homeschooling him was, like, he wishes he would have like was like a sacrificial, something sacrificial that I did, and he's realizing that now. And to be honest, it would not surprise me at all if he and Yesenia would plan to homeschool their daughter, which would be the only child of mine that probably will ever do that, because I know that Hunter and Jordan do not plan to homeschool, as far as I know, but I'm pretty sure they don't. And Ethan, you know, doesn't even have a girlfriend. So, like, I'm not too, or as far as I know, he doesn't have a girlfriend. He's been on a few dates, but I think they were just like fairly casual dates. I don't know how young people do it nowadays, to be honest. I don't know how they do it. I know Matt used to say, we're talking, you know, and I guess Hunter did too. He'd say that he was talking to a girl, and we never used that terminology when I was a kid, you know, when I was dating. You know, usually it was, we're going out, you know. There was no talk. I mean, there was talking, but it was like, we didn't say we were talking. Like, as that was like a pre-dating thing. You know, generally we were friends, and then, you know, or maybe not. I don't exactly know. But we definitely didn't use that terminology. Okay. I think that's good enough. Okay, so Cosmic Bowling. So I don't know whatever happened to my tweezer. Like, I had a letter placing tweezer, because I'm not real good at lining things up. So I'm going to do a C. But like that, like, it made me cry. I was like, oh man. I'm like, and he's like, you are the best mom. And like, I was like, that's really hard for a mom to hear, because like, he was my oldest child, and I know I made the most mistakes with him. Like, and I told him, I sent him a message back, and I said, you know, Matt, I said, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, you made me cry, but it's like, there were so many times that I think that I overreacted. I didn't listen to him as well as I should have at times. I think sometimes my punishment was harsher than it should have been at certain times. I didn't spank, but I know that there were times that I grounded him that it was not ground worthy. I mean, it was probably, I could have probably done more by listening and talking to him. And, you know, I just feel like that, you know, when you're older, you realize with regret so many mistakes that you made as a parent. And I think the majority of the mistakes that I made were with Matt. Just because he was the oldest, and I had never been through any of that before, and I have lots of regrets. And I told him, I said, you know, someday Aria is going to challenge you with her behavior, you know, probably when she's a teenager. And and you're going to probably say or do something that you're not proud of, you know, and you're going to have regrets, you know, because we all do. And it's just part of being a parent. I said, but, you know, I said, you know, now as a parent, you know, that love that parents have for their children, you know, it's sacred. It's a sacred love that's like very protective. You would die for your children. And especially, like, one thing that I feel really guilty about is when Scott and I got married. Like, I feel so guilty about that. I feel like I was incredibly selfish during that time of my life. When we got married, I feel like I really pushed Matt aside, and Matt was my whole world before that. I can't even imagine as a little 4-year-old, like he had just turned 4 too, what that felt like for him. I just can't even. I think that it must have been an incredibly confusing time for him. And I just feel so awful about that. Like, what I should have done. I thought I was doing the right thing. Like, we bought him a little ring, and, like, he was a part of our wedding ceremony. You know, I thought I was doing all the right things, but I wasn't. Like, what we should have done is we should have brought him on our honeymoon. We should have planned our honeymoon around him. Is what we should have done, instead of sending him off with my parents. That was a mistake. Not that anything bad happened there, but, like, I think that we should have made it more of a family thing. It shouldn't have been like, you know, we're going off on our honeymoon, and, you know, but I was so hell-bent on, like, this is Scott's first wedding, you know, this is all about him, you know, and letting him pick everything, because I had already been through it before, so I was like, this is your day more than mine, you know, because I wanted him to be able to, like, have, like, that whole experience. And Matt was somehow lost in the shuffle of that, and I could never come back from that. And I mean, I just can't even. And, like, even the day before the wedding, the day of the wedding, we were so busy, like, getting everything ready, decorating and everything, that he was, like, stuck with my mom and dad the whole time, which, you know, that's not a bad thing, because he had cousins there too, but like, it should have been centered around him. I just feel so bad about that. And there were times that I disciplined him that, like, some of the discipline that I used was just like, I mean, I always believed in making it fit the crime, like, make the punishment fit the crime or whatever. And but what I did was, like, one of the neighbor kids one time when Matt was 12, I had gone into this room was Matt's bedroom, and I had opened the door, and I saw the neighbor kid that was his age at the window hand him something. Was he 12 or 13? He might have been 13. Maybe 14. 13 or 14. And or maybe 12. Somewhere in there, I don't remember. But I was like, what did he hand you? And he said, nothing. And I'm like, let me see. And he said, nothing, because I saw Matt shove it in his pocket. And I said, what is it? Well, so I called him out in the living room. He would not let us see what was in the pocket. Scott held him down. I dug in his pocket. I pulled out marijuana, of all things, a little bag of marijuana. I'm like, what is this? And he's like, Tony gave it to me. And he's like, I've never done it before, you know, all this stuff. I'm like, he goes, I wanted to try it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So, I had Scott take him over. Like, get Tony, take him over to Tony's dad's house, because Tony's dad apparently smokes pot, and that's where Tony got it from. And I made Scott take him over there and talk to Tony's dad in front of him, you know, with Matt and Tony about it. And it was like, it was a big ordeal. And I didn't know, like, I didn't know the family that Tony came from. And, like, that name, like, his last name is synonymous with, like, a lot of, like, not good things in town. But because we weren't from this town, we didn't know that. And since that time, he has been in so much trouble with drugs and stuff like that. The last I heard, though, he was doing good. Like, he was working out at a gym and, like, getting himself all good. That was a couple of years ago. I saw his picture. Like, Matt's friend was his trainer, and so he looked good. But the time before that we saw him, he was a young adult, and he was just, I can't even tell you how awful he looked. Like, he was definitely, I don't even know if he had a home. He may have been homeless. I don't even know. But we were at the bank. We were at CEFCU, and I was waiting for Scott to come back out of the bank, and he came up to the door. I would have never recognized him in a million years. He came up to the car door, and he knocked on my window, and I opened the window, and he goes, "You're Matt's mom, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm Tony. Remember me, Tony, your neighbor?" And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this guy is like on heroin or something. He looked horrible. I'm just like so, like, you could tell just looking at him that he was a drug addict. And he's like, "You don't have $1, do you? Can I have $1?" I'm like, "I don't have $1." And he's like, well, he goes, "Is Scott in the bank?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But he's depositing a check. He's not getting any cash out." He's like, "Oh, well, tell Matt hi for me." And we're like, "Okay, we'll tell Matt hi." And I was just like, I was flabbergasted, like, how he looked. But then, like I said, a couple of years ago, I saw him being trained by Matt's friend, and he looked great. I mean, he looked healthy. He looked really, really good. So I'm hopeful that he's still that way. And, you know. Okay, so we've got Cosmic Bowling. And I feel like I should put, like, Ethan's birthday somehow in here. But I don't know. But I do like this page. I think that it goes, like, it's good for the back of this one. I think it turned out pretty cute. What do you think? Do you like it? So, this video is probably really long because I always talk a lot. But, and I need to go type my reports and get all my toys cleaned for tomorrow because I see 3 kiddos tomorrow. So, yeah, I have a lot to do. Plus, I need to wrap Easter presents too, so. But, I hope you have a good week, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. Well, probably not. Tomorrow. No, I know for sure you won't see me tomorrow night. Probably Friday. Maybe Friday. I don't have any clients on Friday. Scott has off. The boys have off. And then we're going into Springfield for Ethan's birthday. For his 21st birthday, we're going to eat at, we have a reservation at Abe's Hideout. So we're going to go there and celebrate his birthday. But if I can in between there, maybe I'll do that, or Saturday. But I have a lot of cooking to do for Easter too. I decided we're not going to do ham this year. We have so many turkeys built up from they get turkey. All the boys at Eaton gives out free turkeys at Christmas, or is it Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving time, and everybody in my family works at Eaton, so like we have so many turkeys and nobody wants them, so we don't even keep them in our freezer. We take them over to Scott's mom's because she has so much room in her freezer, because it's just her and Bobby, and we don't have that kind of room in our freezer that she's got all the turkeys. So I told Scott, I said, we've got to start eating these turkeys up. We can't just keep collecting turkeys in your mom's freezer. So I decided I'm not making a ham. I'm making turkey. And then she's going to make potato salad and macaroni salad and deviled eggs. And I'm going to make a pasta salad and the rolls to go with it. And like a spring stuffing that's got corn in it. It's more of a, like, it's not like a Thanksgiving stuffing. It's kind of a spring type stuffing. And then I'm making the desserts. I'm gonna make strawberry pope cake and a chocolate cream pie. And then Hunter and Jordan are bringing mac and cheese. So that is going to be our Easter. So maybe Saturday I'll have time. It depends. But so I wish you a nice Easter if you celebrate. Or happy spring too. So but I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.